So first of all, who's excited about the industry we're in at the moment? Who are? Come on! There's a lot of excitement around the industry at the moment. So first of all, merino breeders in the room. Yep, prime lamb breeders. Which one, who of you are more excited? Right. Yeah, look, today I want to talk to you about a little bit. I've got a unique, I suppose, role within the industry. I sit with a processor, but my background obviously is in that animal production side. So I sit in an office with Steve Chapman. Of those that you know that know Steve, Steve is the livestock southern manager. The way that we work it is, he's commercial, I'm technical. So if you've got any pricing discussions, it's not me you need to talk to, it's Steve Chapman. So I see you well clear of that. But first of all, I want to ask you, or I'm going to talk to you about your market. You as breeders and as producers, are you clear on what markets you actually either are breeding a ram for, or are you clear on what market you are supplying to? You know, and if so, do you know what that carcass spec is? Dave put, the reason I was laughing about when Dave put his carcass spec up there is exactly because that's about my whole presentation, is around carcass spec and the right spec for right markets. So, who here in the room, and 45% of our total lamb production in Australia, if we're talking prime lamb, goes domestic. Who here supplies into the domestic market? An 18 to 22, fat score 2s and 3s. So, you know, it's generally your white tablecloth, your butcher or your supermarkets. Who here supplies export? 55% of our market is currently going export. We're talking either a Middle East, which is a bagging lamb, so a really light lamb, or we're talking about into the Middle East restaurant trade, which is a heavier type lamb, but a leaner type lamb. American market, 18 to 26 kilos, or the EU market, an 18 to 24. So, perception of the American market. I put 18 to 26 kilos up there. What is the perception amongst producers of what the American market is? Anyone want to have a crack at it? Because I'll tell you, it's a 30 kilo lamb. That is not what the American market is. Costco, largest taker of lamb out of Australia, we supply into that market as well. Their spec is 18 to 26 kilos, no heavier. So where did this come from? How can we keep producing these 18 to, 30 odd kilo lambs? Processors ourselves are the ones to blame for it. We've been out there telling you 18 to 32 kilos, we'll handle them. Fat score 2s, 3s, 4s and 5s. All right? Processors as a whole are the ones that have been telling you that. It's saying we'll handle everything. But that's not actually the case. So the work that I'm going to show you the work that we've sort of been doing in behind the scenes with industry and even within our own company to try and rectify some of that. So as I said, or do you supply into two markets, or do you just supply into all the markets? Have a crack at everything, the shotgun effect. So I started I've been with JBS 6 years. Now you've got to think, JBS worldwide, predominantly beef. All right, they're a beef company, they produce beef. In America it's chicken and pork. We do a little bit of pork here in Australia, but here in Australia it's lamb, pork and beef. That data up there, when I first started at JBS, for me to be able to get lamb data out of our system, I had to jump on the phone, ring our IT department. I mean, as producers, you don't have to deal with IT departments. They are a world unto their own. Dave's laughing, he knows. I had to request to download data for certain periods of time, and they had to do it over the weekend. That's how nimble our systems are as processors. Processors are absolutely fantastic at collecting data. We collect a heap of it. What do we do with it? Nothing. So I'd get this information and then it'd take me a few days to sort through it. Not good enough. Especially, you know, if you want to make nimble decisions within businesses and things like that. So, the feedback, how good is it? The feedback that you guys, is there some suppliers in the room to JBS? No, none. Couple. How good is our feedback? Absolutely shit. In 2007, when I was with MLA, I worked with the South Australian Lamb Group, and we went around Australia and looked at all the feedback that was floating around. We were looking at creating an MSA feedback system for lamb back then. And that is where we found that the majority of feedback that was flowing back to producers was absolute rubbish. The best one we found was at Narrogin in Western Australia with Polly and what he was doing with the Q lamb guys. And if you look at a couple of slides that I'm about to show you shortly, you'll see some resemblances to what they were doing back there in 2007. But this is the type of feedback we give back to you. Does anyone understand it? Can anyone read it? Well, I've gone backwards. Can anyone understand it, read it? And how accurate is it? Well, the work that the guys at Sheep CRC and MLA have done, the Murdoch Uni guys, have shown that palpated, it's less than 20% accurate. So here we are, as an industry, you guys as breeders of rams have been making decisions based on an accuracy score of less than 20% for the last God knows how long. How great's that? Who knows how far away from the mark we are in regards to where we should be? But palpitation, that is through most plants in Australia. It was through all our JBS plants when I first started. In New Zealand, what do they use? GR knife. That is the common way that they actually measure it in New Zealand. What I can tell you, GR knife is a lot better than palpation, but it's still only less than 30% accurate if you're looking at determining lean meat yield. So, this is really fresh, this photo. I had to get the guys on the kill floor this morning to send it in to me to show you a photo of how palpation works. I hope most of you have been into a processing plant to actually see it. But, see where they're doing it? Is that the GR side? No, it's the short lines. And in fact, Graham Gardner from Murdoch University, he and I have this discussion all the time. He thinks that everyone palpates at the GR measurement side. It's bullshit, they don't. They palpate on the loins. So where they're supposed to be palpating on the GR, they're not even doing that. So we can see that there's inconsistencies of how we actually measure animals throughout Australia. So the evolution, and this can't come quick enough for me because I love looking at data, but the data has to be accurate as it goes in. So we went from palpation about 4 years ago at JBS. Through all our plants, we introduced GR. We said, look, it's not good enough. We need to get GR measurement in, and currently, as we speak, GR measurement is the measurement that we use across all our plants. Viscan's been around for bloody ages. You know, there's one plant left in Australia using it, and I think it's actually even turned off at the moment in Western Australia, Wamco. But it did what it needed to do. It actually did give you a really good result in regards to lean meat yield. It was 45% accurate, which is a hell of a lot better than GR and a hell of a lot better than palpation, but it gave you a better result. The next step, which is, and Sean's going to talk a bit about more, Sean Starring's going to talk a bit more about this, is DEXA. And this is why I'm really excited. Because for the past 3 years, we've had one of these machines in Bordertown, and primarily it's been there to run a cutting robot. And we should never take our eye off that, is that primarily it's there to run a cutting, but the side benefit from it is it gives a really accurate prediction of lean meat yield in an animal, up to 88% accurate. So we can't ask for any more than that unless we go to CAT scan. CAT scan's the gold standard, 100%. Now, love to be able to put one of these in every plant in Australia, but I don't know whether it's, although we got one at Brooklyn, but that's for verification processes. It'd need to do line speed 10 a minute, so I think we'd struggle with that. But this is the evolution that we're on, and this is why I'm really excited, because you guys as producers are going to benefit from it, and processors are going to benefit from it as well. And the other one I'm really excited about is Livestock Darling. Who here's had a crack at it? Livestock Darling? Been on to have a look? Yep, there's a few in the room. Trouble is that we need more processors to actually get involved in it, because this is what came out of that South Australian Lamb Group stuff we did. Livestock Darling, if we get more processors involved in it, what you can do, you can send to any processor you like, and the feedback will come back to you in the same form, doesn't matter what process you go to. So a platform that's all the same across it all. And this is some screenshots out of Brooklyn that we look at. That's a dashboard, that's how many lambs we've been processing through Brooklyn. Here's a carcass analysis grid, which tells me how compliant the lambs are that go through. And this one down the bottom here, this one down here is only been in 3 to 4 weeks. And this is your animal health data. So this is linking up through LDL. You can actually get online and have a look at some of your, and it's going to be sporadic for a little while until we get a few things sorted out. But this down here, so we got, it's a bit hard to see, we got cheesy gland and dog bites and ovis, all these things listed across the bottom. So using that, you can identify back on farm some of the issues that you may have had within production, whether you got pleurisy or things like that, and then hopefully fix that up on farm. So what are we using it for? LDL and the data. And the great thing about LDL and the data is, so what happens is we upload carcass data. So if you kill them today, we upload it tonight. It goes to the NLIS database and then speaks to Livestock Darling in the morning at about 10 o'clock, transfers the information across, and it's available for you guys to access. So it's a pretty instantaneous thing. So the days of me ringing IT on a weekend, getting it getting them to run the information over the weekend and get to me has gone. I can pretty much access the data the next day. And this is what we use it for. We use it for weekly mapping of our producers. We run reports using the information out of LDL, and then we create the reports like this. So this is Cobram, our Cobram plant, and what you've got across the top are just the averages, but down here is our buyer team. So hate bloody double screens. Buyer team, in there's the supplier. I've got that covered up so you can't see it because there's probably a couple of people in the room that are in there. And then their compliance. Their compliance to an 18 to 26 grid, fat score 2s, 3s and 4s. So righto, we can then look at it. There's our overall compliance. I can't see that. What's that say? So 58%, nearly 59% is our compliance on the kill for that week at Cobram. If you're in a factory like Toyota and you were churning out cars at 60% compliant, how well do you reckon you'd go? You're down the tube. Yeah. So this is and before 18 to 32 grid, just whop it in, you know. Now we're starting to drill down in doing some analytics around what is exactly happening. So here, we're now benchmarking all these producers that sit in here. And look, we can see our guys there. Top one, 97.6% compliant. He needs a bloody gold star, that bloke, I tell you. Done an absolutely fantastic job. So what we're about is driving change. It's about trying to change producers' perceptions around grids and also around compliance. This bloke down the bottom, 5.8% compliant. How do you reckon he's viewed upon by our managers in our operations department at Cobram? Because I can tell you, the biggest whinging we get is from those guys. Because it's a processing factory. They like processing Coke cans. New Zealand, they got the spec right. Tell you what they've stuffed up though is the eating quality side. Here, we've got the eating quality right, but we've pretty well stuffed the spec up. So this is just some compliance rates. So this is 2016. This is Cobram plant. The top one going through there, the green one, that is the overall compliance. So last year for a year we ran at 63.6% compliant. The bit down the bottom there is the average of the lean meat yield. So currently at the moment, even without using DEXA, by doing the GR measurement and a hot standard carcass weight, we've got an algorithm out of sheep CRC that then sits in behind LDL that will give you a lean meat yield percentage. So at least now we're starting to talk about it. It's getting out there, we're starting to talk about lean meat yield. The next one, overall compliance to an 18 to 26 grid by plant. So we've got Longford in Tasmania that's sitting on 87% compliance. We've got Bordertown sitting on 68% compliance and Cobram sitting on 63%. What do you reckon the difference is between Tasmania and the mainland? Sorry? Grass? No? Auto drafters, I wish. Yeah, that'd be easy to implement. No, it's about, so in Tasmania, if we look at where they started, with their merino flock, they're a lot smaller type animals. Therefore, their basis of what comes through is a lighter weight. They average roughly around 22 to 23 kilos. That's why Coles is down there pinching a heap off there, because they fit their spec. They're a lighter animal compared to where you started over here on the mainland. And then if we look at our sale yard performance, this is the other great thing about it. We can then go in and actually pick out the data on sale yards, on our buyers buying in the sale yard, and see how they go. And this is just Cobram. So Cobram, if we look at an 18 to 26 bracket, 57% compliant. So they're roughly about the same as where the producers. If we look at an 18 to 32%, 18 to 32 kilo, 81% compliant. Is there any sheep buyers or lamb buyers in the room, or have been buyers in the room? No? How do usual buyers operate? You know, what do they like doing? And they're a breed, like they are, they're a breed for themselves. And Dave's nodding because he knows. They love the competition, don't they? And they love buying numbers. So they get in the yards and they bloody jostle position at the thing, and they all bloody stick their hand up and then they rush off to the next pen. They love egos. Doesn't matter who it is, buyers are driven by egos, all right? That's a good thing, especially if you're bloody short and you need lambs in your processing plant. But what do they do at the end of the day? They send in their results and they say, oh yeah, no worries, we average 24 kilos. Righto, great. So then when we go and kill them the next day, we find there's a whole swag of 28 kilo plus ones in there, and there's a whole swag of bloody 23 below ones. But the average is good. Doesn't help the plant operators, because they're whinging they've got big heavy fat lambs coming through. So what we've done is we've started benchmarking our buyers. And this is I would say very new to but we use Livestock Darling to do it. Okay, we're using the information coming out to do it. So just to explain it, I've taken their names out, all right? So you got over here, I want to talk about over here, number of head bought. You got number based, a ranking based on the number of animals they've bought down here. So D's topped it, he's bought 20-odd thousand lambs for this time period. All right, down to G down the bottom here has bought 14,000. So what we see here, and it's split up, is so we're looking at the percentages of lambs that are bought for the farm assurance program. All right? They can go and buy a heap out of the yards, but we want to see the comparison, and this has got direct farm assurance and sale yard lambs in it, this number here, okay? But because our business is starting to grow based on the farm assurance side of things, we want them to target more producers around that farm assurance stuff. So you got that, then you got your direct over the hook stuff, and then you got your sale yard. So here we go, we look at compliance. So D is the one that's actually got bought the most, but A, who's ranked 4th on the buying, is the one that's the most compliant. So we have to now start not just looking at numbers, we've got to start looking at compliance as well. And sale yard, oh, we're going backwards again, are we? No? Had that one? I'm going backwards, yeah. So that's all great. I've been talking about lean meat yield, and lean meat yield is in, sorry, we'll just scroll back to that data. I want to point out this figure here. So we've actually got that lean meat yield figure in there, lean meat yield there. So for every one of those producers, they've got a lean meat yield figure, all right? So that's all great. What happens if we actually concentrate on just compliance and lean meat yield? What'll happen? We'll end up like the New Zealand industry. These things. Those things are the best, I don't want to say quality, but the best lean meat yield outcome. A merino lamb at around about 18 kilos. No fat on it whatsoever, goes through the boning room, you don't have to trim it. Absolutely fantastic. That'll be I don't know, probably a 65 lean meat yield or something like that. But, how does it eat? Eats like shit. So if we continue down this pathway of purely looking at growth rate in animals and leanness in animals, we're going to bugger up what we've got. We need to take eating quality in as well. You can't just go promoting lean meat yield and growth and not actually have a eating quality component in there, okay? Because what does Dave want for his customers? Eating quality is the number one thing. If a customer or consumer goes and bites into a bit of meat, a bit of lamb, and they get a bad reaction from an eating quality perspective, how long does it take them to go back to it? 3 to 6 months they talk about, might even be longer. But that is how strong the human psyche is when it gets a bad result. So how do we measure it? And this is again some of the exciting stuff that's going on, because currently at the moment we can't measure it. All right, we can have a bit of a crack or a bit of a, say, oh, they look all right, those lambs, but we can't measure it at the moment. Dave Pethick, the mad professor out of Murdoch University, he's already got a MSA Grading Calculator for lamb. It's already there. We talk about it at the National Lamb Supply Chain Group all the time. And what happens is you punch in your breed type, you punch in your hot standard carcass weight, you punch in an IMF, you punch in an eye muscle area, you punch in a GR measurement or a lean meat yield outcome, and then for the loin on the top side, it spits out an eating quality score between 0 and 100. What I want to get that to is an MSA index, the same as we have in cattle. That has been the best bloody thing that we've done. Got away from boning groups and gone to putting an index in for cattle. If we have now a lamb index, and we'll get it there, a lamb index, that'll pave the way for a lot more gains within our industry. The other thing we need is we need to be able to measure intramuscular fat for IMF, but we also need to look at eye muscle area. They're the other two key components that you saw in that calculator. Hyperspectral camera, and if you press Sean, he might talk a little bit more about it, but it's really exciting times around this. So that's the photo that you get from using the Caramatech hyperspectral camera. You can see we can get eye muscle area. We also have got flicks of marbling in there. So, but how much do we need? If we talk about the beef industry, we, even JBS, with our Great Southern brand, we've actually based different eating quality levels based on marbling and MSA index. So our Pinnacle, which is our high eating quality, top 5% of all eating quality animals in Australia, has a marble score 2+ and an index of 63 and above. Our Great Southern, which is the overarching brand, it has a 61.2% MSA index, top 10% of all eating quality animals in Australia. This is where we need to get to in lamb. Because currently, and Dave said it, we've got no way of actually differentiating lamb in the market. We can do it based on cut and weight size, but that's it. We've got nothing else to actually value add the lamb with, or actually keep it in front of consumers. So how much do we need? Well, the work that the sheep CRC at MLA and work that we've done in this area shows 4 to 6%. It's not much. It's bugger all. Hard to see with the human eye. So that's why we need the cameras to measure it. But the real indicator was that the work that we did at Bordertown with the sheep CRC showed that the levels are under 4%. So the current lamb flock that we're seeing, they're under 4%. So we've got a little bit of work to do there in regards to IMF. And the other side, what it showed was an increases in IMF in carcasses, we get an increase in eating quality. But if we solely go out, and this is where the danger is, if we solely go out with just looking at lean meat yield and don't take this into account, they're antagonistic. They're going to drive it the other way. So even punching in some data that we've seen into Pethick's calculator, it shows that even at the moment there is a danger that we actually will not be able to produce an eating quality outcome in lamb, around what we talk about ideals. So we've still got a bit of work to do in that area. So what might the future look like as far as grids go? Well, it's going to include a weight. It's going to include a lean meat yield, and it could be based off your hindquarter, your middles, and your forequarter. They're already doing that in New Zealand. They will give you a feedback sheet that shows your lean meat yield of each sections of your carcass. What you do with that will be interesting, but it will actually, you'll be able to get that data. It will include an eating quality index. If I have my way, it'll be a single number, not like we saw just before, based on a loin and a ribs, and it possibly could have a compliance bonus to it. So that's sort of what we call a bit of a super grid, I suppose. If you hit your spec in the middle here, you're going to be that you get paid full tote odds, but as you drop outside that, depending on weight and depending on fat or lean meat yield down the side, you're actually going to drop down as far as discounts go. But you're going to need to meet an MSA index, and I'm guessing it's going to be roughly around 60. I don't know, but that's what we see in the beef side of things, and it may end up being roughly the same. So, the FA producers, I'm going to mention I manage the farm assurance program. What this has allowed us to do is connect with producers, but also it allows us to benchmark the producers. I went back before and showed you what we were doing on a weekly basis. Well, we do this at least once a year. I travel around Australia, run workshops and show producers where they sit in regards to supplying into our program. And it's been a really good connection, because what you tend to find is those producers that are sitting down below 10, they're coming up saying, well, what can I do? What do I need to do to get high? It creates a bit of competition out there in the market. And that's just the results from last year. 2015, as you see, they're pretty heavily weighted towards the Longford guys. You might know some of these guys in here. We've got a couple at Bordertown, and then we've got one at Cobram, based on the results of 60-something%. You know, that's why. Longford ones are higher. But it is actually, and then what we get is those producers that are down here, they're seeking or asking questions. How do we move up that scale? The year before, the winner of it won a Ford motorbike. So there's, they got a box of meat last year, but who knows what they'll get this year. But it just, you know, it's just a little bit of fun and having around it, and hopefully educating producers around what we do. So why are we doing this? Why are we mucking around in this analytics space? Now, those at Lambex would have seen this. This was from a cadet that was working for me last year, Laura Wishart. I did an absolutely fantastic job last year with us. She analysed a period in time, and it was through the middle part of the year at Cobram. I sort of pick on Cobram a bit, because we get about 25% fat score 5s through there. So Cobram does tend to cop it. But we were at Cobram. It was a couple of month period. And what she did was then went and got the profitability of those lambs based on eating quality and carcass weight. So you've got up the side your lean meat yield as a percentage. Across the bottom you've got your weight classes. That black line is profit before tax. Okay? That red line is break even. So this was in about, what I'd say, June, July or August last year. So probably not much different now than what it was back then. But you can see our optimum area is in that 24 to 26 kilos, or 22 to 26 kilos. 22 to 24 is where our optimum profitability is on lamb. Once we get out here into the heavier weights and the fatter animals, so the lower down the scale the fatter the animal is, it goes out the window. Now, weight can help through our rooms, there's no doubt about that. No, different to you guys. Cost of production, working on kilos of meat per hectare. We work on kilos of meat through the room. But what we can't handle is kilos of fat through the room. It takes, as soon as we pick up a knife, what's our highest cost in a processing plant? Livestock first. Livestock 70% of your cost. And the next thing is labour. Labour is our second. So the less we can do to an animal through the plant, the better. And that's what's driving all this. All the analysis of information, all the tweaking of grids, looking at really analysing our business. As I said, most processors collect a lot of data, but they don't do anything with it. I think we're doing something with it, and hopefully feeding that information back to you guys as producers. So, in summary, what's the biggest issue? What has been the biggest issue holding us back in lamb? That objective carcass measurement. That has been it, honestly. Like, you know, beef have had measurements in there for, I don't know, good measurements in there for 16, 18 years at least. I was in a meeting in Adelaide the other day when I had a beef producer tell me the lamb industry's miles in front of us as far as collection of data. And I turned to him and I said, "You're kidding me, aren't you? What sort of data do you get in beef?" "Oh, we get hot standard carcass weight, we get all the Osmeat data, we get all the MSA data." I said, "Righto, in lamb we get a hot standard carcass weight and a palpated fat. That's it." "Oh yeah, you might be right." So finally, we're starting to get, we've been able to get somewhere near a good measurement. We're starting to have a look at the tools to track it, so like Livestock Darling, and pass it back to you guys as producers so you can analyse your business, and it's starting to have some meaning. That was the other thing. There was feedback, but it didn't mean anything. If you can't interpret it, it doesn't mean anything. So that's where we're sort of at, I mean, from our perspective as JBS, and I'm sure there are other processes around that are doing it as well. That's probably about it for me, I think. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Great talk. In New Zealand's defence, we actually had the livestock manager from Alliance stand up at our sheep breeders forum in New Zealand, and he said pretty much what you said, that the average fat cover was down around 6.5, 7. Yeah. And so we have started going back the other way, and we've started at the breeding end. We've actually removed negative penalty on fat in the index, and we're starting to reward body condition score, which will put a bit of fat back on the carcasses. Yeah.
No, exactly right. About 10 years ago, I was with a New Zealander, and they were just starting to do eating quality trials then. So, yeah, I can see that. And we need to be wary of that, all right? Because the key... Absolutely. And we'll still be floundering around on spec.
Just a quick question. So in Victoria, with the introduction of the electronic tags, with the feedback that you're going to provide producers, will you be able to break that down to individual animals? So then
absolutely.
They can then use that in breeding programs and all that sort of stuff to produce
Do it now on beef, so there's no reason why we won't be able to do it on lamb. And in fact, JBS is a big supporter of the RFID implementation in Victoria. And not just based on what can be done on farm with it and the data we can supply back, but our customers. If you went back 5 years ago and asked if our customers were asking about individual RFID in lamb, not many. I can tell you in the last year I've had more inquiry out of our American customers around individual traceability on lamb than I've seen in the last 4 to 5 years.
What's driving that?
I think just transparency. Customers wanting to know exactly where their feeds, especially in brands like Great Southern. They're paying more for it. They want to know more about it.
Mark, on that weekly mapping you put up, and you had the lambs there that only 5% came to spec, and then the ones at the top that I forgot what the percentage was, but
97.6.
97.6. But the sad part is that you probably paid $40 odd more for the ones that only had 5% in spec. So it's got to be driven by your side of the industry before this side of the industry will take any notice, because they'll take the $40 every time.
Righto. No, very good. I'm glad you brought that up. So in the farm assurance side of things, the last 2 years we've had an 18 to 26 kilo grid, fat score 2s, 3s and 4s, and a discount off of that. It's around about 12 to 14,000 animals a week that we do in the farm assurance program. And I can tell you, our livestock manager has been hit hard by our sales team. So I've been at JBS 6 years. There's been 5 sales managers been through there since I've been there. Every single one of them's been a Kiwi. Every single one of them has said, your lambs are too fat and they're too heavy. But what's happened is we want to fill hook space. So you have an 18 to 32 grid. In the spring last year, we said, righto, we bit the bullet. We're going to come out with an 18 to 26 grid, like we do with the farm assurance, same grid. And then drop off as penalties. You get over 30 kilos, it dropped off 50 cents. What did you as producers do? The road, someone's got an 18 to 32 grid. So, do you want real market signals or do you want less risk? And so we tried to implement it and producers walk the other way.
This was kind of a question to David as well, but also for you, Mark. As a producer and selling lambs direct to the abattoir as opposed to going through the sale yards to get that eating quality better for the consumer, you know, and I suppose forming a relationship between the producer and yourselves in order that we can have a win-win outcome for the producer. Everything's driven by the consumer, of course, and I suppose to get that feedback and tying into the livestock data link, is that the mechanism by which producers will get information fed back to them, and is Victoria leading the charge in terms of this electronic ID and having information back to producers so that we can gain that benefit?
So for us as a company, because our systems are archaic in regards to being able to get the feedback out, the Livestock Darling has been the best avenue for us to get the information back to producers. That's why we've chosen. There are other processors around which have their own feedback systems, and they're quite, you know, good to do that. But what actually misses out on is the ability to analyse carcass data as a whole across Australia from a whole myriad of processors and use it in R&D. And if you've got your own little link, you know, your processor, and you're just giving producer feedback, you miss out on that. So we've chosen LDL, but there are other processors that have their own systems that do that. I encourage all processors to have a better feedback system. That's probably where I come from. So if you talk about the yards, so our buying out of the yards, and you might be a bit surprised at that because we stand up there in the yards all the time, but our farm assurance programs don't allow for lambs to come straight out of sale yards, have to come off from off farm. That is a customer requirement. So customers are recognising that the sale yard system is not good for eating quality and not good for animal welfare. The other side of it is that we probably operate around about 70 to 75% over the hooks. So we're in the yards, but we're not buying heaps out of there. Sometimes it's 50%, 50-50 through tough times, but it averages out at about 70-75.
Mark, I had a similar question to Don around the feedback for the heavier lambs. What do you actually do with them? Like, they obviously don't fit the market specs you've talked about, so what do you do with them?
So what are we doing? Anything over 28 kilos gets frozen down, and we lose about $4 to $5 a kilo off it. So we do find a market for it, but it is at a reduced cost. Yeah. It's not ideal. And based on that short slide that I showed you where it had profitability, see where the big heavy fat ones are? Yeah, we're behind the 8 ball.